Thanks for joining. I'm Patty Breslin, and I am with San Leandro 2050. We have a number of people here, residents, and some experts, and another San Leandro 2050 employee, Joanna Sizemore. We're super happy that people have been interested in this. We had a lot of RSVPs, so we're excited to share this information. It's kind of an exciting time in the solar arena. Things are heating up in terms of the assistance you can get for solar, and at a federal level and a state level. And everything is changing quickly. So we're going to share what we know now. And as things change, we will send out updates. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have three residents, Stephanie Krugel, who has been involved with San Leandro 2050 for a long time. Amy and Nicole are also going to speak about their systems. Then we're going to go through some things are in front of my notes, so I changed this over here. So we're going to go over new financial incentives and some of the solar rules specific to California. We're going to share some resources to look at and that you can use for getting more information about your install. And we're going to do a question and answer at the end. So if you hold your questions, write them down, keep track of them, put them in the chat, something like that, and then we're going to take those at the end. So why is this not advancing? There we go. Okay. I also want to mention that we have 3 more webinars coming up around heat pumps and hot water heaters. That's on January 23rd. We're going to talk about induction stoves and generally electrification and changing out your gas appliances on February 6th. And then we're going to have a workshop on gray water. We're going to start with the basics, which is a laundry to landscape kind of setup. And that's on February 20th. So a lot of people signed up for all 4. If you'd like to sign up again, if you haven't, then please do. Okay, so now on a selfish note, San Leandro 2050 has been collecting information from folks in the city for about 2 years. And I'm going to turn this over to Joanna Sizemore, who's going to put up a poll that it's going to take one, very short time. It's 3 quick questions, and she's going to put it up. And if you could answer those for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. Joanna?
Hi, everyone. So I just launched a poll with some solution questions and problem concerns that we just want to hear your input on, so we know where to move forward with in our data and our future projects. Thank you so much. I see you guys are answering. We'll give you a little bit more time here. There's 2 questions to answer. On the first one, you can choose 2. And on the second question, you can choose 3. A lot of you may have already answered this at our outreach events, but we just still want to get this data from each event we have. So thank you. We appreciate your input. We'll just give about another minute. Almost everyone has answered. We appreciate your input. About 30 more seconds here. Okay. Has everybody got their answers in?
A couple more people have meanwhile joined, but
Okay, we can wait a little bit longer. We're just asking you to give your input on some problems and solutions around climate change.
And remember, scroll down for question number 2. Most of you already saw that.
Okay, we're almost to 100%. I think this is good. Does anybody need more time? We have another question after this one. It's just a short answer question.
Okay, why don't we move on?
And we're just sharing the results there so you can see what they are. Sorry, I'm just copying this down once.
And just so you folks know, we've seen this in other opportunities. We've taken, asked people to answer the poll. Wildfire and smoke is usually kind of a top concern.
And flooding and sea level rise is not ever, and this is an interesting change in the data.
That now it is more, yeah.
Not surprising, given
Looking out the window, yeah. What about the second one? Do you need to scroll to?
I'm sorry. I launched the other poll where you can write a short answer about what change you would most like to see in your neighborhood. And we'll just give a couple of minutes for that. A lot of answers we usually get for a question like this one is more trees, more green spaces, more safe walking and biking a lot.
And this can be anything, you know, I mean, if you were to just have a free wish improvement in your neighborhood, you know, it could be not related to the solutions we offered earlier.
Okay, in the interest of time, as I'm the timekeeper, why don't we close that poll? I don't know how, what do results look? I've never seen those. Okay, great.
Are you able to see people's responses? No.
I only see my own.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Thank you for participating, everyone. We really appreciate that.
Great. All right, I'm going to pass this now along to Stephanie Prugal.
Thank you. And you can move on one slide.
Okay.
So I'm a San Leandro resident in Davis East, if you know where that neighborhood is. And this is my house viewed from the backyard. And I went solar about 2 years ago, so it's fairly new. And showing you here the sort of sunny side of my house, I have a system that's 13 panels large. So the way these sizes are determined is that you kind of add up the max capacity. So if there were like the most extreme direct sun, like this would crank out 4.6 kilowatts. And I electrified along with getting solar panels. So my motivation to want solar was really to to sort of live within my means as much as possible. I wanted to see how much I could use the energy that, you know, falls from the sun on my place. Like, how far can I get with that? Like, sort of a self-sufficiency approach. So I have to say, I was not looking for financial, like, you know, savings, because I actually, you'll see in my slides, my electricity or my energy bill wasn't even ever that huge, but I also have a rainwater catchment system, and I have a native plant garden. And I really just wanted to see if a residence, like, what would it look like to just have the lightest footprint possible? So I was thinking, hey, if I get as much electricity from the sun and use that primarily, like maybe I can really minimize what I even use from the grid, and that way can eliminate fossil fuels and even what I drawn from the grid that has to be, you know, distributed and has its own impact. So to me, it was kind of a no-brainer that I also electrified. So that term is turning your gas appliances into electric appliances, so you can actually use the electricity you generate. I'm gonna get into that a little bit, not a whole lot, because we have these webinars coming up that are specifically about electrification, but I'll touch on it just because it kind of makes it was a reason for some of my decisions and sizing and such. I just flipped my notes, make sure I didn't omit anything I wanted to say on this slide, but I think we can move on to the next one. So I want to talk you through my experience, my journey in a way, because I think it might help you go solar or evaluate if that's for you. One thing I forgot on slide number 1 is the size of my house. So just so you get a better sense, 962 square feet. So that's the size of the roof. My first step actually had nothing to do with solar or appliances, and it was to make my home as efficient as possible in the first place. So it's for me a fairly new home. I bought it in 2016, and the door you see there, that's my front door, and there was literally a sort of almost 1-inch gap under the door that, you know, my first winter cold air came through, and it was just overall, you could tell it wasn't insulated, it wasn't comfortable, it was very drafty. So before I even went into all these solar considerations, I hired an energy assessment person, and the red thing is one of the testing tools they use. So basically they put this on your front door, you close all the windows, and then they put kind of a suction on your whole house where you see that fan at the bottom, and attach a measuring instrument and can see how much basically leakage your house has, how much air it can actually suck out. So unsurprisingly, there was a lot, and you want some for ventilation, but you don't want that much. And so weather stripping means sealing those leaks, and basically very, very sort of basic stuff where you just seal cracks, you know, with grout stuff. Whoever has their mic on, please go on mute. There's some noise I'm hearing. Then the real insulation I got in recommendations from my energy assessment person that I did was insulation in the walls in the attic and the subfloor. So there's different options people have. I went for fiberglass that was actually blown into the wall. So it's a retrofit. They basically drill holes into the wall, blow in the stuff, and then seal the holes, and you really can't see it later. And in the attic, it's those spats, those big sort of like down jackets are made out of fiberglass that you have up there, and the same sort of tacked under the subfloor. So with that in place, I'm able to heat less than I would otherwise, because I'm no longer heating basically the porch and the garden. So just to give you a sense of the cost, was really affordable with rebates that are currently out there, and there's more coming. So this is even more lucrative. But the assessment cost me $200, the full installation $1,500. I think that's a real bargain. So no regrets there at all. Next slide.
Sorry.
No worries. So now to assess if are you a good solar candidate, like say you want to suss it out and there's some sort of nuts and bolts things that you have to have in place. I mean, for example, have actually sun on your roof. And you can use a pretty handy tool to learn just about how much sun you get. Is this Google Project Sunroof? It's kind of a calculator tool. You put in your zip code or your address rather, and it gives you this picture. You see my house here on the bottom with the red drop pin, and then the bright yellow is where you have southern exposure, very direct sunlight, and it calculates how much of your roof you could use for panels, what the how much sunlight per year, all the stuff that then helps you decide, well, it's a go or not. So the exposure is important. I have no trees that shade the roof. I have southern exposure. I also have a good slope, like the roof slope is important. If it's super steep or very flat, it's not impossible to get solar, but the efficiency will be less. You may need more panels. And further important is that your roof actually has to be in a good state, because when panels are installed, you screw them into the roof essentially, so it has to be solid right there. I had just recently gotten a new roof. I had to, so I was in good shape. But if you also think you might need a new roof, you can roll that into getting solar panels and even get certain tax credits on everything, including the roof. So something to think about. I think room for panels, if you have the sun exposure, usually not the problem. I actually got more panels than I would have really needed, just because it was so tempting to, harvest all this wonderful sunshine I get there. But you can easily find out what your situation is from this tool. One thing I will say in terms of solar candidate is that even with the incentives, you will have to fork over a chunk of money. And I had saved for that, so I had that, but there are also very low or even no cost loans out there if you think about, well, where's that money going to come from? Next one. So now about the sizing, or about figuring out, well, if I want to go solar, how much do I need in my household, size of my house, the stuff I use? And if you talk to solar installers, they will first say, well, send me a recent PG&E bill, like your energy statement. And that is a good start. But I'm showing you mine here from like before I got my system. But one tricky thing is, I would say that most of us have not only electricity charges, but gas charges. And just like my bill here, they are bigger than the electricity charges, because so many of our appliances, like the stove, the wall heater, the hot water heater, especially in older homes, and mine's of 1946 or something, it tends to be gas. So you have the red box, your electricity, and the blue box, the gas. And if you just went solar and said, okay, I'm going to use my own electricity, but you'll only run your lights and your computer with it, the gas still you'll have to buy, right? So that's where this decision comes in if you want to electrify. So in my case, I really did want to go all electric, almost more, or actually more for environmental reasons, but also if you wanted to truly make the most of your solar financially, that's a good idea. And there are really good incentives coming for that. So it's even more important to think about that. The tricky part with the sizing is then translating your current gas usage into future electricity usage. If you have a good solar installer, like when they make an estimate for you, some help you with that. I also did some of that calculating myself, just trying to figure out, well, how many days, how many hours each day would I run, say, my electric stove, and you'll have to do a little homework to just have an idea of how big your system needs to be, including, say, uses you don't have yet, like an electric car. If you want that, that'll add a lot of need to your system that, of course, is not reflected in your PG&E statement right now.
The time check with you too, Stephanie. So
what's your time check?
So we're getting close to 15 minutes. So just let you know there.
Okay, so here on the should you electrify, we can go through this really quickly. I just wanted to give you a few visuals of what that means. So here's my old gas wall heater. On the next slide, you'll see what that looks like as an electric heat pump. Forward slide, because when I electrified, I wasn't able to just walk into Home Depot and look at one. You'll see it has an outdoor unit and an indoor unit typically. So there's a bit of a change in that, just what that looks like. But for other stuff, as you see on the next slide, which is I believe my hot water heater, that the footprint and the look and where that goes pretty much one-to-one. So not really any change in how you use that. The induction stove that you see on the next slide, size-wise and the same, that does take a little getting used to, but it's also pretty much one-to-one. So more on those electrification things in other webinars. We're going back to solar on the next slide. So big question about the battery. I want to make it clear that, well, a lot of people think I want to be the one who has electricity when there's a blackout. That's why I'm going solar. But you have to remember, you can only do that with the battery. If you just have solar and the power goes out, you'll go out just the same because your solar system needs electricity to run. And you'll have to provide that. So that's one reason for a battery. But the much bigger reason, and that was the reason for me to get a battery, is that when you can store your own electricity for use when you want it. So when you produce most, which is during the noon hour, especially in the summer, you won't use it very much unless you use it for AC or something. Most you use in the evenings. So to really kind of use your own juice and be most independent with the battery, you can store that electricity during the day and then you use it in the evening and you don't even draw on the grid. But it is pretty pricey in spite of rebates, which we'll see in a moment on my financial slide. That should be the next one. So here, just a summary here. For the solar system, which for most of us will include a panel upgrade. So you have to figure that in. For the 13 panels was 16,000. The battery, you see, it's almost as much as the solar setup, 11,500. And when I did it 2 years ago, 2 years ago, tax credit was 26%. So you see what I got back in tax credit and what I sort of ended up paying out of pocket, just under 20,000. I do want to call out that if you did this year, tax credits are up and it would only be 16,620. So it's better time to do it now. And my last slide, Patty, I wanted to show just what it's looked like in terms of, well, monthly cost, a monthly generation and all. And so I'm sharing with you this annual overview. This is from my app that I have, and it's for the year of 2022. You see these bars at the bottom, one for each month going from January to December. And the white ones is what I fed into the grid, and the blue is what I drew from the grid. And you see that from March through October, I didn't even touch the grid. So basically, and this is because I have the battery, it would look a bit different if you didn't have a battery, but I basically used solar energy as it came in during the day. When the sun was gone, I could use my battery, and then by the time the sun came around again, I still had juice in my battery, so didn't have to go to the grid. I did have to do so during the winter months. So those small blue bars, you see that's the cold months when the sun's just not as strong and you need more for heating. I currently pay, my bill is $11, which is really just the delivery charge. There's that minimum amount, has nothing to do with what you draw on from the grid. And I have a lot of overproduction. I told you guys I oversized the system really. I want to have an EV at some point. I don't yet. And you get very piddly money for that. I was paid out $200 for a whole year of all that 4,000 kilowatt hours of surplus. So not worth it to do that. But, I also was really pretty much independent from the grid. I think that's all I have Patty, go forward if there's another slide, I can't remember. Oh, this is about how to find somebody to install it for you. So get at least 3 quotes and a few tips from me and others. Amy and Nicole will share theirs. But to me, it was really, I didn't go with the cheapest quote. I went with a company that's really local and where the installer was also the person I talked to. So it wasn't a marketing person that spoke on behalf of a national company and then somebody else shows up to do the installing. It was the guy who also did the installation, very small company. And so I can still go to them with questions. And that to me was really important. So that's how I ended up deciding, but everybody's different.
Yep. Very good. Oh, okay.
And we do have a bunch of resources. We'll share that after Amy and Nicole go, just so just know that they're coming.
Excellent. Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So our next person up is Amy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Chavnik. I live on Broadmoor, and I got my system, well, I actually got my quote. I was gonna go look in 2017, I think is when I got the quote, 2016 maybe. And then yes, I think in 2016, I got the quote in December because I wanted to, if you got the quote by a certain point, you could get at then was a 30% incentive, and they started to decrease after that. So I got my quote by December. I was able to qualify for the 30%, but my system didn't get installed until May. So just that gives you kind of an overview. Why did I get a system? Well, mostly for environmental reasons, but I have been driving an EV car since 2013. So I got the system I was looking, I had, you have to show PG&E what your electric uses were. So I had pretty good idea of how much electricity was being used for my EV car. Now I do work at a place, I work at Las Positas College. We have chargers there. So I only had to charge when I came back from work. And so when all of these places are going to give you quotes, I'll just pick up where Stephanie left off. They are going to look at your PG&E bill, and it helps if you can provide, they usually just look at one, but even just looking, I was able to look like 3 years because I had an EV car, what your usage is year to year, because it's really hard to like, oh, you anticipate other things you're likely to do. At the time when I got my system, I had electric stove, electric oven. The only thing that was gas in my house was really heating. And we did have a, what do you call it? Tankless water heater. So that used gas. I hang up my clothes to dry with the actual solar. So when I was looking at the system, I had a pretty good idea of what my usage was. I hadn't really, although now I'm thinking about a heat pump, so that may change things. So usually when they give you that quote, they're looking for you to, at the end, really be at zero. The amount that you're putting in the system and the amount that you take out, you're going to have net zero. And I did get quotes from 3 places, and they all pretty much came in about the same size system. And I'll get to how I chose and that in a little bit. So the system that you're seeing here, that's kind of the best angle, is actually on my detached garage, because that part faces south. And I knew that was probably going to be the best place, although everyone, they look at Google Maps and they'll tell you that. We did need a new roof on the garage, but we decided to do it ourselves because it was less expensive. And we did have a sub panel in the garage that we had to upgrade for this. And so we were able to use that panel. We didn't have to do too much on our main panel in order for this to work. So what you're seeing on the wall there, where it says SunPower, that was the system I got, is inside my garage with the little sub panel. So at the time when I was looking, now the process that I went through is I started asking a lot of people who had already gotten solar in my neighborhood. My neighbor, he ended up leasing, and I had heard from everybody that leasing is not the way to go. You definitely want to buy the system. So, and he really got screwed out of money from that. So I knew I wanted to buy a system. But at the time when I got it, like I said, 2016, when I was looking, a lot of people had gotten into that wave of doing this leasing thing. And I really don't want to get into that because I don't think that that's financially a good way to go. So at that time, the city had been putting on these seminars with the SunShares program. And I was really surprised that when I went to a seminar similar to this, that like 5 people showed up and it was in a physical location. And what the SunShare program are some discounts that you can tap into. Basically, the city of San Leandro was looking to solarify some of their buildings. And so as a resident of San Leandro, through the SunShares program, you could piggyback on any discounts. So I thought that was a great idea. And the city, I think it was a city, through the SunShares program, had already vetted a couple of vendors who showed up at this event. And one of the vendors was a vendor that I had already looked into. So that was good. But it wasn't the company that I eventually went with. I'm trying to look at the chat as questions are coming in. So I talked to those vendors there, and then I had them come, and give me quotes. And I decided to go with a SunPower system because I wanted a system where the parts were made in the US. And at the time when I was doing it, there was that whole big thing was going on with China and some companies that were going out of business because they were getting parts overseas. So I wanted US parts. The company that did the installation was Solar Technologies, and they install SunPower systems. And it was pretty seamless. I mean, they came, they put them up, it was like done. It was so easy. They take care of the permits, they take care of organizing with PG&E, and then that fun day when they finally turn the switch and your system's on and you get to like actually look online. So that system, the electronic box you see there, has Wi-Fi that then you can go and check all what your solar panels are doing, which in the beginning I was like religiously looking at it because I thought it was so much fun, but I haven't looked at it in years. So, it just chugs along and I see my bill, and I know that it's working when I see my bill. If I have a little bit of time, Pat, I just wanted to add that, and Stephanie touched upon it, like figuring out just how many panels you want. I went with the maximum I could have on my garage, which was 14. We might have been able to squeeze 16, but it was questionable whether to go end to end because the fire department needs to be able to like walk on your roof and, if they need to punch a hole in your roof because of a fire. So you can't really go end to end. I have 14 panels. It doesn't look like it at the angle of this picture, but I do have 14 panels. What was I going to say? Oh, the only problem that I have is my neighbor has this tree that does block some of it. So if that tree ever comes down, I will probably get more out of the system, but I never fully get, what my system is, I think 4 point, was looking that up, I think it's 4.48, almost 4.5, which is, and my house is a 1,500 square feet house. So, I have been kind of at that, like putting in what I get out, except when my son returned from college and then he got an EV car, and then I was paying because of that, and I had not anticipated that. Now that he's gone, I'm going back to that kind of net zero. The other thing you should note with an EV car is that I was able to get the EV rate, which is the time of use rate. So basically, I charge my car after 11 when PG&E rates are low. So I'm not really using my solar, if you think about it, at the time to charge my car. I'm charging my car probably using what is hydroelectric power at night, or maybe nuclear power at night. And during the day, I'm selling back at a higher rate to PG&E at least in the summertime when the sun's out. So getting an EV car does help you with your electric rate. I haven't really compared in a while. I know PG&E has gone everybody to this time of use, and there's different rates that you get. With an EV, you do get probably the best rate on your electricity. So even at non peak hours, you're paying the lowest rate with the EV rate. You may be paying slightly higher during the peak, but then you have your solar. So that's it.
Okay, great, thank you. And then lastly, we're gonna go on over to Nicole.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Green. Oh, Patty, can you advance one slide?
Oh,
thank you.
yes.
I'm also a San Leandro resident. I live over in Best Manor. So my reasons for going solar was definitely a big part of lessening individual environmental impact, wanting to electrify, move away from natural gas appliances, having a lighter footprint like Stephanie talked about, and kind of wanting to start offsetting our energy costs. We'd also installed a heat pump earlier this year, which you can barely see by that tree in the back of the house. And we knew that we would be seeing increased electric costs for heating and cooling. So it sort of made sense to like combine solar with that beginning of electrification. Um, and our system was just installed in November of last year, so we've only had it for about 2 months now. We're about a 1,500 square foot house with 2 people living in it, and we ended up getting a 12 panel system for almost 5 kilowatts. We started the process in July, just by getting quotes, and selected an installer in early August. We did not get a battery this time. And if you're looking at the house, the rest of the panels are on the back side, the upper story of that house, because that's kind of the southwest facing roof. So that's where we're getting the best sun. This other set of 5 panels here are sort of capturing the sun that comes in like later in the day, especially in the summer. And I don't know if this is like going to offset a lot of it, but we're thinking about time of use as well because we're still going to be generating solar power when like those time of use rates come up in the summer, like from 4 to 8 p.m. that time period. We also don't have any shading from trees to worry about, so we're hoping that this will kind of maximize production. And our baseline usage was pretty minimal up until we installed the heat pump in terms of electricity. So if you looked at our like previous year's PG&E bills, we upsized by almost 200%, but we're already seeing that that usage has gone up quite a lot because we're also using the heat pump for heating this winter. So I think we're still going to be slightly oversized, but it probably won't be that dramatic after a year of using everything. And a quick plug for heat pumps, our gas bill was only $50 for December. And that's because we weren't using a gas furnace anymore. So we're already kind of seeing that pay off in terms of lower energy costs. The total cost for this system, and so this was just in August last year, was about $17,000 in as a cash price. We also didn't do financing, and so with the tax credit, that's about 12% because we will be getting that 30% tax credit this year. We had a 125 amp electric panel, and we didn't need to upgrade that actually with this size of system, and also with our heat pump. So we're definitely going to have to do that upgrade in the future if we start adding additional electric appliances. But for now, we were able to let that go. And I'm actually kind of glad because now there's more tax credits for this. So we'll be able to kind of roll that into one of those upgrades in the future. So that quote for about 17,000, it wasn't the lowest quote. It was towards the bottom of the range. Definitely saw a pretty big range of quotes. I probably got too many quotes in the end, I think, but definitely getting a few different ones will help you just kind of get a sense of where, installers are at. The pricing also sort of scales with system size. So like once you hit 10 panels, the price per panel can be a little bit lower. If you have a much bigger house than that, you're getting even more, the price per panel will probably go down. Overall, the process was really easy. We didn't really have any complicated setup. We didn't have to get a new roof. We didn't have to replace our electric panel. I think the longest period was just waiting for the building permit from San Leandro, which took at least a month. I think they were pretty backed up over the summer. The install itself took like 4 hours. They're very fast. It's sort of amazing how quickly they can kind of get the system set up. And then we got approved by the building department and PG&E that next week. So it was really seamless in that regard. So I think like the most time consuming part was definitely that initial research, like getting quotes, choosing the installer and thinking about the sizing. You know, I think you can always say like, oh, maybe I should have added one more panel or a few more panels. Because you really, like Stephanie was saying, you really have to think about all your gas usage if you want to go electrify further, and it's hard to estimate that exactly how much energy that's going to use. But there are definitely some like calculations that your installer might be able to help you with. I think installer wise, like there's so many solar installers around the Bay Area to choose from. There's national companies, there's more local ones. And, you know, I think as long as you do your research and you talk to people and you feel comfortable and you have a sense that you're getting, you know, a good price and you're happy with the system and you feel like it's going to serve your needs, you know, you don't have to worry too much about that, you know, if you feel comfortable with them. We ended up going with a local installer, and also because they installed panels that were made by Panasonic, which happened to have this warranty that's covered more broadly. So even if that installer were to go out of business, you know, we'd have some sort of warranty. Although my understanding is it's pretty rare to like have to go through that. For solar panels, they, you know, they don't really break that much. And yeah, so I think like pros and cons of it, the initial investment, it's kind of a guessing game because you don't know like what energy costs are going to be in the future. You have to think about increased electrification. So kind of that scaling in size, you know, should you be investing more money initially, even if like it's not going to, you know, there'll be like some payoff date when your savings on electric bills matches the cost of the solar system. And that can be hard to predict if you're still in the process of electrification. And, you know, if there's future regulatory question changes, if PG&E changes how they do net metering or something, even though hopefully we're all locked in for a certain period of time. But it still just made sense to us to add a source of clean energy to our home and offset our electric usage. It's definitely going to really make the process easier to start doing things like getting replacing our gas stove, replacing other appliances, getting an EV. Yes, I think that's kind of it.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll note my installer in the chat as well. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so these are some resources that you can use during your research phase, and these will be sent in the presentation, which you're going to receive in an email after the session, and you can check them out. I'm going to move along because we are a little bit behind and we want to get to our incentives and some of the information, and we're going to introduce Tom Grayley.
I'm going to do that. Oh, or are you going to introduce yourself, Tom? Real quick, I just want to really appreciate Tom being on our webinar today. He's in Berkeley and is super knowledgeable about all this solar and electrification stuff, not only because he's a retired electrical engineer who's electrified and solar installed his home, but he's also on the Berkeley Electrification Working Group, so really involved in stuff and a whole host of other groups just to help people with understanding the process and incentives. And that's what he's here for today, to help us understand how we can get the most of these new incentives. Thanks, Tom. Take it away.
Okay. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. So the Inflation Reduction Act was passed late last year to the amazement of practically everybody, and but it does provide an enormous number of credits that we can start using right now. Rooftop solar and with or without battery, and an electric panel. Well, right now you get your 30% tax credit. Started late last year after the act was passed. Future things are coming along. Now, what happens with the rest of the weatherization, heat pump, water heater, electric stove, etc., those are going to be implemented soon, meaning the federal government has to pass the money on to the state. The state has to establish the rules and methodology by which to distribute the money. But, and so as a consequence, most people are predicting that late 2023, you will be able to start getting these upfront discounts. Most people think that even if you went ahead and purchased a heat pump water heater today, you would probably still qualify for these discounts, but you wouldn't get them up front. There has to be a process by which you would apply later to be able to get these discounts. So, and the discounts are significant. There are, for example, there's $4,000 for an electric panel, which in most cases should take care of any kind of electric panel upgrade in addition to the 30% tax credit. So be aware that these are there, they're coming. The ones that are in existence right now are very good. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so net metering changes. So net metering simply means that you are able to trade kilowatt hours with the local utility on a one-for-one basis. You produce a kilowatt hour, and you can give that to them, and you take a kilowatt hour from them, and they don't charge you for it. They give you no money for it, and you get no money. So right now, if the price example on the left-hand side is right now, most of us pay approximately 40 cents for a kilowatt hour to purchase from PG&E or East Bay Community Energy, the combination of those two. And so if we received one of those kilowatt hours from them, they would not charge us that 40 cents. And if we sent one of those back into the grid, we would not be given that 40 cents. So that's just a one-for-one trade. Now, NEM 3, which starts basically April 14th of this year, that those rules change. And so if you were to draw from the grid, you would be charged 40 cents. And if you supplied a kilowatt to the grid, that would be 10 cents. So it's basically a 75% reduction. So it's really important if you're going to go solar, get with that solar contractor of yours, make sure they have a full application filled out and ready to go and submit it, because as long as that application is in there before April 13th, you will still qualify for NEM 2, which is the left-hand side, which is far, far more profitable to do it that way than to wait until NEM 3 comes along. So NEM 3, the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, estimates that it will take approximately 9 years for someone to pay back a solar installation on under NEM 3. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, so these are the Rewiring America is a national organization that has produced a savings calculator, and this will be really great for people who want to know how much they're going to be qualified for. Now, the maximum anyone is qualified for is $14,000, but it is also based upon income. So depending on your income and depending upon the average income in your area, you will qualify for either none if you make too much money, or almost 100% if you do make if you don't make very much money. And there's steps in between that. So that incentive calculator for you is there's the URL to go to. Also of note is that there are, in addition to the Inflation Reduction Act, there are many other incentives, and the key one in this area is BayREN, and BayREN.org gives rebates based upon simply installing things for insulation, heat pump water heaters, heat pump HVAC systems. Now, there is no income requirement from BayREN, but there is a requirement that you use one of their approved installers. So if you go to BayREN.org You can start there, you can get an energy assessment from them, and then once you decide to move on. This does not have anything to do with solar, because they don't address solar, but they do address all of the other electrification that you might be involved in. Also, if you're starting to go into things like looking around for new appliances, the EPA does have energy efficient appliances that they recommend for stoves, hot water heaters, and a variety of other things. So that would be another resource to go to take a look and look at that in addition to talking to your contractor. The last one is an article explaining the NEM changes. And it's really quite complex what the CPUC has done. So it'd be probably good for you to read that.
I also want to mention that the two next seminars that we're doing will feature Bayren. Is actually the folks who are going to present that information about the rebates and so forth for electrification of the heat pumps and water heaters and stoves. So they'll be able to give good info on that.
There's one more that I should have had put on this. Oh dear, hang on. Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. There's another organization that you might want to take a look on. It's called Switches On, and I'll put the link in the chat after I get done talking. They also have a really nice link to all of the rebates and other things that are available in your area. Switches On is a California organization. It's across California. So that would be another one. So that's it.
Great. All right, so we are going to move to some questions. So you can do that in one of a couple ways, and I need to. Okay. As I said, the slides and so forth will be posted. I'll send an email. You'll get these with these resources, and we're going to move to questions now. I haven't been watching the chat. Stephanie, are there questions in the chat?
Well, right now I'm actually reading one that's been we've been answering and sharing and such. Anthony is asking if my electrical panel was part of my solar install in December 2022, so just passed. Is it eligible and is eligible for the 30% rebate? Can I still get the upfront electric panel upgrade discount you mentioned later this year? That's up to $4,000. I mean, provided you qualify income level wise, because that is what that hinges on. But Tom, I'm not sure. Can you sort of retroactively? Go ahead.
And my understanding is that the answer to that is no. It has to have been installed or at least billed after January 1st for the $4,000 upfront rebate.
So Anthony, what you do, you already do get the tax credit on that, the 30% for the panel. Yeah.
That is correct. Now the tax credit is limited to, I believe, $600. I'll check that.
But that would be under the IRA, I think. Right. Because I got my panel, it all was like old system, 2022, before 2023. Everything you do, the panel, the battery,
right.
Yeah, it's all rolled together, and 30% of that you get in tax credit, no limit. You can get it, depends on how much you owe, but you can roll it over to next year's to make good on your tax credit. But Tom talked about this. I just want to emphasize, because this is something I had to get my head around. There's really a lot of layers of incentives. So there's the tax credits for everybody, regardless of income, as long as you owe enough on your taxes, that are up to 30% for all this solar stuff. Now, there is Bayren that is regional, has been around. I use them, like the stuff I showed you, my energy assessment, the weatherization, the insulation. Bayren gave significant rebates on that. No income requirement has been around, will be around. But then what's coming, and will be through the state, but we don't even know yet which agency will administer this, are these so-called upfront discounts. So unlike Bayron, where you get a rebate, you get a check in the mail after you fronted the money, these IRA upfront rebates go through your installer. You won't even pay that money. Like if your income level is such that half of your heat pump is going to be discounted by the IRA, you only pay half from the start or nothing. So, but the kind of catch with that is that they haven't come down to the states yet. They're sort of like signed off on by federal, but that's not till later this year. So we'll have to have yet another webinar to tell you what exactly.
So from the panel point of view, if you put in a new panel with your solar, you're qualified for the 30% rebate. If you put a new panel in after January 1st, you not only get the 30% rebate, but you also get a $4,000 upfront discount. But that upfront discount is you're just going to have to wait to see how that's going to work, because you qualify for it as of January 1st, but the programs have not been established, they have not been implemented, and they probably won't be until late 2023.
Okay, we've got times. Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I can take this one. So Anthony's asking, so there's this question earlier by Lawrence, what if you add a small system now and expand it next year? Will you get NEM 2 or 3 for the expansion? And I'm basing this on what my installer told me recently, is that filing a new interconnection agreement with PG&E triggers you going to the current NEM agreement. Like you're reforming that agreement. So if you only put in 2 panels this year and you were just like, oh, I'm going to add 10 panels next year, you would be on NEM 3 when you add those 10 panels and you re-up the agreement. So what I heard from people is that you want to kind of max it out now and go as big as you need to. And yeah, I think that there may be, depending on the type of system, sometimes you can get around that, but I don't want to make any claims about what you can or can't do. I think from the perspective of PG&E, if you add panels, you have to refile for the agreement.
I believe that's correct. There was a short period between NEM 1 and NEM 2 where they allowed some sort of incremental update, but with NEM 3, if you change your system in any way, shape, or form, you're on NEM 3.
Yeah, and I don't think that includes a battery, however. So if you add a battery later, that's not going to trigger the same thing. So that would be okay to postpone.
Yeah.
I had a question, Tom. As far as NEM 2 and 3, how does that play in with the EV rate or time of use? So you said you pay, are there going to be fixed rates that PG&E is paying out for what you put in and what you put out, or is it based on your the rate plan you have?
Okay, it's not based on your rate plan. It is the rate plan basically says there's going to be two levels. Either you pay the day rate or you pay the high use rate. And right now, most of us have landed up on what they call ETOUC, I believe is the designator that PG&E uses, and that basically says there's one rate for the high use period, which is 4 to 9, and the rest of the day is the low use period. And that's on for 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There's no breaks for holidays, weekends, or anything else. It's sat away. But the NEM 3 is but in terms of what kind of compensation and how much money you're going to get back for your NEM 3 generation, that gets to be a very, very complex question, because the PUC has established a calculator that will be updated regularly. And so there will be two rates, one for the daytime rate and one for the high use 4 to 9 rate. And those rates will differ. So if you can, in fact, deliver energy between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m., you will get a much higher return than the average 10, 11 cents that's now being predicted for what the NEM3 price will be. So I don't know if that answers your question. Because
Well, it's just that the EV, I'm on an EV plan, so my rate is different than what other people pay peak and non-peak.
Right. Okay. I'm not from, I didn't go on I was on an E6 time of use plan beforehand. And I found that was more advantageous for me before that, but that E6 has gone away. They kicked me off. They shut that one down. And so it's the ETOUC that most people are on. I'm not, I quite honestly, I don't know.
Because there might be some people in our audience today who already have an EV
Mhm.
and are going to get solar. And
Mhm.
so they may already have that EV rate. And I was just adjusting that for those people, how that
right.
might play into this NEM3.
Yeah. I don't know.
I wanted to call out, oh, sorry, somebody asking something?
Yeah, I just wanted to address one of the questions in the
Okay, good.
chat. Somebody asked if there are any resources for loans. And I don't know the answer to that question, but I can tell you that we have recently gotten pricing from different solar installers, and typically the solar installers will offer you financing. And I have to imagine it's probably not the best financing you could get, but they typically will offer it.
A while ago, there was something through the county where you could get this loan and then you're basically paying it back through your property taxes that you pay. I don't know if they're still doing that through the county.
Interesting. I think that maybe your solar installer might, well, maybe not. I don't know. That's something that I will include in the email if I can find resources on that.
Yes, and I saw somebody put in the chat that you pay a certain amount up front, a certain amount when it's installed, and a certain amount when it goes live. And that was the same back in 2017 when mine went in too.
Yeah, I think we paid a nominal deposit and then half when the materials were delivered and half after the install. I'm seeing a lot of tax questions in the chat, and I don't want to like overstate anything because I think some of these are best answered by a tax professional. And yeah, I'm not sure about when to claim in terms of final payments and that sort of thing. Yeah.
I mean, from when I claimed my tax credit, I could have allocated, it was up to me how much I claimed in a given year, but it didn't seem to matter. I mean, I would have gotten whatever the remainder. This was mostly if you get more credit than you owe, then you get the remainder the next year. But there didn't seem to be a reason why I would do it later or this year. Didn't get more or less, you know.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe Anthony, your question is if the final like invoice was 2023, do you have to claim it for next year, or can you still claim it for 2022? And I don't know that answer. Yeah.
Somebody just mentioned in the chat that they're using their home equity line of credit for installing, which is it sounds like a good option to me. And then somebody asked whether if the installation is not a roof, if it's an awning or gazebo, do the same incentives apply?
I mean, it sounds like Amy's situation. Don't you have yours on some non-house building?
Yeah, I have it on my detached garage.
And that was treated just like if it were on your house.
Yes.
As long as it goes through your electric panel, there shouldn't be a problem.
You have it on your dog.
Yeah, it's what your bill, it's the address of where your bill is what they're basing.
And like some people, they have a field, and they put their solar panels out in the field because that's the best spot for them, and that still counts.
Good question.
All right, are there any other hands? I don't know if I can see hands.
Don't see.
Or if somebody just wants to unmute and ask a question, it's fine too.
Or tell their story or something.
Yeah. Anyone? Okay, great. Well, it is 7:00 something, 7.
Seven.
So, this has been very good. I'm super happy that folks have joined us, and we hope to see you on the next one. Check us out, go to our website, see what we do. That'd be great. Thanks for joining.
And watch for that follow-up email that has all this.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Huh?